Hey everybody, it's another week of Married at First Sight recap with Patty and Al, the professional lovers in training.
In training.
In training. Well, we've already seen a little bit of a meltdown in two of the couples already, and it's only day number 3. But before we get into that, because it kind of happened at the end of the episode tonight, the biggest thing was the couples getting to know or talking to family and friends. So after the first night, the wedding night, and of course the big question there is, are you going to have sex? Are you not going to have sex? I think this is the first time that all the couples
Abstained.
decided to wait and not do anything the first night. But now we've seen couples that say that
And lie.
they were lying. They really did do on the wedding night. But it seems like every couple this time decided to wait. And that's not a bad thing.
Actually, it's even understandable. I mean, even though they have committed to an act, they're still strangers.
As in married, they committed to getting married.
Yeah.
They still don't know each other. So unless you're the kind of person who is comfortable with having sex on the first date, then you'd probably be comfortable having sex with a stranger who's your husband or wife. But it kind of seems like the couples in the past who have done that,
Didn't last.
it didn't last.
Yeah.
There was no movement toward at least becoming acquainted as
There's
friends.
no build up.
Yeah.
Building a relationship.
So just leading out with sex just didn't seem to work well.
Because that's exactly what it is. Sex is not intimacy. I mean,
Right.
yeah.
Because you don't know the person.
Yeah.
So, but I was more interested in the whole family dynamic. The couples talking to
Q&A.
the mom and dad or brothers or friends. Because, even though when you get married, the Bible says a man should leave his family and cleave to his wife. In this situation, there's no cleaving, really, because you don't know each other.
True.
And you're not trying to cleave to a stranger. I don't know what you're
But
about.
you don't know how to. I mean, you don't know the nuances of that person and what would make you want to bond. I mean, yes, the professionals have done what they needed to do, but again, to feel a person, to interact with a person and be interacted with by that person, I mean, that's where the relationship gets its strength.
Right, and that is the downfall of this particular process, is that you don't get that beforehand.
Right.
So, but when you get married, you do marry the family.
True.
And so the
True.
family always has its way of finding out who the person is all about. Now, last week we talked about you coming to meet my family. Remember the test? Yeah. But the thing is that, again, once everybody found out that I was bringing a man with me, because I'd been gone from home for 6 years, so bringing a man home. I have 4 brothers, and there were 3 that were living out of Huntsville at the time. One up where we were, so he had already met you and started getting to know you. But out of the other 3, 2 also were not living in Huntsville. And they came back for that weekend.
They lived in Huntsville that
Patty's
weekend.
bringing a man. Oh, we going to Huntsville for Labor Day weekend. And so one came from Buffalo. And one came from Nashville. Yeah, to see what he was all about.
And one lived here.
And one lived here. The
Yeah.
baby brother was still in college, still living at home, so he was already here. So yeah, they came to make sure. Now, on our way to Huntsville during our drive, I did try to warn you about my brothers, and I remember telling you they're big teasers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the more you get upset or frustrated or react to the teasing,
The more teased you
the
get.
more, yeah, it just
That's brothers. I mean, that,
propels them.
and in retrospect, I probably look at it, you know, understanding what it was. Um, they became fathers that weekend, but I understood that because they're looking out for their sister. And the teasing part, again, going to all boys schools, and
He
I
was
understood.
prepared
Yeah,
for it.
I had a background in that and understood how guys can be guys. So
Right. And like I said, every family has its own way of finding out, what the person is all about. For them, it was all, well, like my baby brother, it was all like competition. Uh, oh, let's go play pool. Let's go bowling. Let's play basketball. Guy stuff. This whole, uh, male macho competitiveness thing that y'all do. So that was their way of getting to know you.
no, they got to know me.
And of course, my dad's way was through those tests
Mm-hmm.
and scoring the tests and finding out just how compatible he was to me. And for my mom, y'all took a little walk before
Yeah,
we
yeah.
went back to Maryland.
And everybody displayed their concerns and, had their way of trying to get a little insight as to who I am, what type of personality and character I was that was spending time with their daughter and sister. And I understood that. I mean, even though I was an only child between my parents, I understand what a family member can feel for another family member, especially when they're dealing with somebody else that can affect the heart of that family member.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't want anything to happen to someone you love, what sibling or otherwise. You can do whatever you want to do to them, but nobody else can. I understood that even though I didn't live that, but I understood that it was just their concern in finding out who I was spending time with you and feeling comfortable within themselves that being left alone with you or me being left alone with you, that you were okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so I understood that.
But even with that, it's important that a couple realize that once they are married, that their loyalty is to
The spouse.
the family that you are establishing,
Mm-hmm.
not the family that you grew up with and that you're blood with.
Sure.
Um, and unfortunately, I think a lot of couples get caught in family dynamics
Mm-hmm.
that aren't healthy for
Sure.
their relationship. These couples in Married at First Sight, it's different because they're strangers,
They're just as new.
and a lot of the families don't agree with this process,
Mm-hmm.
even though they support the couple, the individual, their individual children. But to see your daughter or son marry a perfect stranger,
It's a little awkward.
and you don't. I mean, you can't really. You're having to take what they say at face value, like it's the truth, and you
Mm-hmm.
really don't know.
True. True.
It's the truth. I don't know if I could do that, or want to see my child do that. But hey, we all start off as strangers.
True.
Right. We
Sure.
just don't marry them, but we all start off as strangers. So that was interesting to see each couple talk to family members and hear the kind of questions that were being asked, and as the families try to determine how they felt about who their child married.
Yeah. getting involved with. But one thing that I did find interesting in the different uh, communication efforts by the individuals with their respective spouses, family members, there would be times where the groups would ask the individual, what their intentions were and so on and so forth. But on a couple of occasions, there was the individual asking what they should know about the person that they were interacting with, that they wouldn't know, that the family would probably be the best ones to ask. And I found that a little bit more refreshing in that person genuinely trying to figure out as much as they can or could
Get a little
about
heads up
right,
from the
about their
people who
spouse.
know the spouse the best.
Best, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And to me, that shows a little bit more insight of the individual, as opposed to, just spewing what I'm about, what I like or what I don't like, and this is what I do, and so on and so forth. And it's a banter. It goes back and forth. But when I think a person is what we term other-centered, you try to find out what it is about the other person that drives them, that motivates them, that where their interests are, and how you can better communicate and please that person.
And Derek showed an enormous amount of sensitivity by asking Katie's dad to step outside the restaurant where he was meeting with him and the mom and other people.
The two moms.
Yeah, the two moms. His Katie's mom and then his wife and her brother. But he asked him to step out and asked for his blessing as her father on the marriage.
That union. Yeah.
Since he did not get a chance to ask
beforehand.
Right, for her hand in marriage beforehand. And I thought that was really cool.
It was.
I don't think we've seen anybody do that in any of the seasons, specifically man to man.
Right. And in a younger couple, that was refreshing.
That showed a lot of
character.
Yeah, it
on
did.
his part as a youngster, mid-20s. I mean, really, who does that nowadays? Just to ask the blessing. I mean, you get to know the family and whatnot, and yes, you will interact, but to actually, literally go back to the old-fashioned asking for one's blessing in the hand of marriage.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. So, let's see. Oh, so another thing, now we get into kind of like the early meltdowns. Okay. But I want to start with kind of the last meltdown that we saw starting to happen. And that's where Mindy, all the couples ended up at the honeymoon hotel at the same time. And they all met down at the lobby. And so now, before the girls had all gone out together, the guys had all gone out together. And this is the first time that they're seeing each other with their matched spouse. And Mindy, who married Derek with the gorgeous hair, she has started comparing them with the other couples.
And seeing their admiration or
well, just their comfort level.
Right.
Their comfort levels with each other or not. And she was noticing and saying, well, how it's crazy how we've all done this at the same time, and yet there are some couples who seem like they've been together for years, and others who look like they're struggling.
Yeah.
You could feel the tension or awkwardness, but she's using that to compare where they are, and she was feeling like, well, some of the other husbands seem to be more helpful, more attentive to their wives, and it was making her feel self-conscious about
what she felt she was
not getting from him
Right.
in the same time frame as others. Now, what do you say about that?
Well, in their case, specifically with her, she started off just from the visual aesthetics
Yeah.
of her husband being a good-looking guy.
Yeah, yeah.
That she was
already bowled over
yeah
from
yeah
the beginning. It was almost like, I have gotten this.
yeah. I mean, what was the word that I used?
I don't remember.
But she admired his looks. I mean, she was kind of caught up in that, thinking that this is more than I should have.
Right.
You know.
Right. That's a sense that you get.
Yeah. Yeah. Because yeah, he's a good looking guy, but she's a good looking girl, and but still there was a certain insecurity within her that was displayed in her being kind of overwhelmed by how she felt this guy looked. And like, yeah, he's a model, all of that. But he's still a guy. I mean, he bleeds when he cuts just like everybody else.
But there is a danger to comparing you and your spouse, you as a couple, with other couples.
Mm-hmm. True.
Because when you see other couples, you're seeing them outside of the house, outside of their private confines where you don't know what's going on.
True.
As the old the cliche says, you don't know what goes on behind closed doors.
Yeah.
And so that's a dangerous precedent to begin setting. Yeah. Comparing what you and your spouse do or don't do with what you see other people do or not.
Yeah. Infatuated was the word.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because it sets up expectations that can turn into disappointments.
Right.
And we said last week, in this particular process of Married at First Sight, you have got to be supremely patient.
Yeah.
And just let everything
evolve naturally.
Right, organically. Yeah. And not expect that, this should happen by here and this should happen by here. And if it doesn't, then there's a problem. And because you start setting yourself up for...
Expectations bring on disappointment.
And for button heads
in this situation.
Unnecessarily.
True.
Creating drama where no drama needs to be.
Exactly. I mean, because everything is so fresh, so new. And it can be a situation where something as minute as, a routine that a person does with themselves.
Or has been doing.
Yeah,
all this life. Time.
Yeah, like brushing your teeth or washing your face. You're not accustomed to talking to somebody while you're doing that. So, when another person may not be doing that at the same time, talking to you, it may feel awkward.
Which is what Mindy was doing to Zach. As he was.
And
he did sound a little bit, he sounded a little salty. Are you going to talk to me while I'm washing my face too?
I mean, yeah, it could have come off a little differently in how he asked, but, this is a routine that he does that,
he's been doing by himself.
Right.
For
and
however long.
Men are from wherever we're from, and women are from Venus.
Mars.
Wherever.
Men are Martians.
We communicate differently. And there are times where silence is not a bad thing. We don't have to force conversation or what have you. And then when, the other side is maybe just because of the newness or the awkwardness of it, you want to communicate constantly because it's nervous energy and you just want to talk about it or just talk things through. That's not everybody's propensity, and sometimes it creates awkward moments.
Well, whatever happened, by the end of the 2 hours, she was in the hallway of the hotel saying she didn't want to go back to the room because he had made some comment about not building attraction to her or something. And we won't know really until next week
Yeah.
what he actually said and how she took that. But real quick, I want to get to Michael and Mika, who had a conversation on the plane about when they were going to have sex. And when they got to the hotel, it was apparent to all the other couples that there was something amiss between them. And come to find out that in their discussion, apparently Michael had given what Mika thought was an ultimatum about when he expected to have sex, which was different from what he had said on camera. And that was the whole issue. She accused him of being different off camera than on camera. On camera, he's uber patient. He's saying all the right things. He's, presenting himself in his best light. But off camera, she basically accuses him of being a completely different person.
Yeah. And just looking at that situation, I wonder, and again, guys, in the manner in which we communicate sometimes, because it was said in the beginning that he has a unique sense of humor. Now, I'm not trying to give him an excuse.
We don't know.
But I wonder if maybe what he said
was in jest.
Well, yeah, just kind of like a off the cuff kind of remark, and it was taken
straightforward
as its face value,
right.
And it kind of caught her off guard. And I'm sure that if that were the case, everything stopped right at that moment. Whatever anticipation or playful anticipation there may have been, that ceased to exist at that moment, because again, it was a breakdown in communication. Now again, I don't know, none of us know what was said,
right?
But we know how it was
taken, and it was not taken well,
right?
And he ended up getting his own hotel room, because he felt like he needed to give her space, but he kind of reiterated that he was the person that the experts saw, because she was kind of accusing him of possibly, pulling the wool over the experts' eyes as well, because she just doesn't know, and she's speaking out of fear that she's gotten someone who claims to be one way who's really a different way. And so we'll see how this all plays out next week in next week's episode. But we had said last week that there have been instances where people have portrayed themselves one way on camera and a different way off camera. And in this process, you can't do that.
True. And we do have to keep in mind that all of this is condensed time placed in a 2-hour setting,
right?
And for
cut and edited and all of that
for the sake of drama and build up
But the tension between them is real.
Oh yeah.
And so it'll be interesting next week to see how much more detail we get from what was actually said and their reactions. The next day, after that evening. And it will set up a great conversation about how men and women communicate. And so maybe next week that will become a specific topic as we see how the couples communicate. And we have a lot of tips about that in our book, Becoming a Professional Lover. And so we can actually highlight some of that, because the way we communicate, they really are Martians and we really are from Venus. How we think.
Venetians?
Is that what it is? Venetians, Martians and Venetians. According to the person who wrote that book. We're not saying that for real. Yeah. But we are saying that men and women do process things differently and communicate differently, which becomes a common sticking point for couples. So we'll see how that plays out next week. We don't want to keep you. We like to keep our little discussions short and succinct. And so we're looking forward to seeing you again next week as we head into episode number 5. Until then, peace.
Enjoy.